There's so much bad information out there about how cowboy boots should fit. So in this video, I want to go through 5 myths about cowboy boot fit and debunk them right here, right now. Let's get into it.
I'm just here to connect ya, and then I'll be on my way.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremiah Craig. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here to remind you to hold boot companies to a higher standard. Get your feet measured and boot up with the proper size. Speaking of the proper size, there's lots of myths out here about how cowboy boots should fit. And these myths are actually perpetuated by the cowboy boot industry because it's much cheaper to make fewer sizes and just fit you with a pair of boots that doesn't actually fit you correctly. As long as you fit into the boot, that's all that matters. But there's a lot of issues that come with a poorly fitting cowboy boot. So that's why I always ask you guys to hold boot companies to a higher standard. First, let's talk about cowboy boot fit. And I've talked a lot about this in previous videos, and I can link them up in the description. But a quick summary is that a cowboy boot should fit snug around the widest part of the foot, snug at the instep, and you should also have a little bit of heel slip when you walk. If it's tight in any of these areas, it's too small. If it's loose in any of these areas, or you have too much heel slip, it's too big. I got 5 myths that I'm gonna debunk in this video, so let's start out with the first. You need to size down for your proper fitting cowboy boot. This is flat out wrong. You should get your feet measured on a Brannock device and then just go with that size. The problem is, cowboy boot companies don't make all the sizes anymore. And this started when El Paso boot brands were sold off to Berkshire Hathaway and other conglomerates, which then took their boot manufacturing overseas to China and a little bit in Mexico. And China doesn't have a lot of different boot width lasts. So when these companies were getting boots made in China, they would get mainly D's and double E's made because you can still fit into those width sizes even if you are a different width size. That's where the wide square toe just took off, because you could fit into a wide square toe if you are a narrow width size, but you could still be in there with a D width if you size down. So what happened was, in a lot of boot stores, some boot salesmen would then try to get you to fit into a square toe boot because there's a better chance that you could fit into it because it's not gonna pinch your toes, right? For example, I'm a 12B, as many of you know and get annoyed of me saying, but I can fit into an 11D or a 10.5D square toe. And that's how this industry saves money. What you need to do, though, is boot up with your proper size, because it's not only you fitting into a boot, it's also getting the proper support at the arch. So the first myth that we just debunked was you need to size down for a proper fitting cowboy boot. That's not true. You need to size down to fit into a lot of new modern boots that are on the marketplace. It's not a proper fit. This leads us into our second myth, which is that square toe boots give you more room for your toes. This is not true. You should have exactly the same room for your toes, whether it's a square toe or a round toe. You can wiggle your toes around and you're fine. And this even is perpetuated by the industry, because if you're sizing down to fit into a square toe boot, then your toes are gonna be cramped at the end of this boot anyways. I've had square toe boots where my toe is at the end of the, like I can actually feel the end of the boot. And you have these boot salesmen that are saying, okay, where's your toe on this boot? Like we're in DSW trying sneakers or something. But really, that's a bonus myth, is that it doesn't matter where your toe lands in a boot, because you have a square toe, you have a round toe, you have pointed toes. I mean, if we look at any of these snip toes up here, like this one, for example, this isn't a snip toe, but it's a J toe. It's just the closest one that I have in reach. You think that making a toe, pointing out a toe here and pointing out a toe here is gonna make a difference? How are you supposed to do that? Where your toe lands in a boot doesn't matter to fit, but you could have just as much pinching in a square toe boot as you would in a pointed round or J-toe boot if it's not your proper size. So I actually fit really nicely into this 12B vintage Justin boot that was made in the 70s, and I've fit into wide square toe boots before that pinched my toes way more than that. So it is a myth that a wide square toe boot gives you more room for your toes. And if you have a lot of room and you're swimming in a square toe boot, you have a too big of a size. And that leads us into our third myth that needs to be debunked. That is, there are only D and double E widths because people got fat and their feet got wide. This is not true at all. Most of the guys that I measure on my branded device are either B's or C widths. So maybe the boomers got fat and their feet got wide, but the millennials and the Gen Zers, that's not the case. There's a lot of folks out here with narrow width sizes, wide sizes. They're only saying this so that they don't have to make all the width sizes and they could save money. So it's really a myth perpetuated by the industry to save them money and not really care about what you feel or providing you a good fitting cowboy boot. Speaking of B's and C widths, our fourth myth that needs to be debunked is that B and C width boots are women's boots. This is just ridiculous. There are plenty of guys out here that have all the width sizes from quadruple A to quadruple E. A width size is a width size. It's not a tampon, guys. Get over yourself. On top of that, there's plenty of women out here who have D's and double E width feet. To say that a width size is purely for women and another width size is purely for men is just ignorant. We have to stop falling all over what the industry says and think for ourselves a little bit. And the last cowboy boot fit myth that I want to debunk is more of a breaking in cowboy boots myth, and that is soak your boots when they're new so they fit better. This is an awful idea, especially for modern boots. If you soak modern boots that have synthetics on the inside, they will fall apart, whether you're just walking around in them or if you try to get them repaired. There's lots of boots out here that are made, at $200, around $200, less than $200, maybe some around $300, depending on what leathers are used, sometimes even more. That if you soak them to break them in, when a cobbler goes to repair them, they will literally fall apart because the insides are paper cardboard. Like the Rhodes boots that I reviewed last year, on the inside is cardboard. If I were to soak those boots to break them in, if I was to try to get them repaired or something else, they just tear on the inside when they're trying to get repaired. And then that Goodyear welt doesn't matter because the boots are shot anyways. On top of that, this whole myth started back in the Civil War when the U.S. government was providing cavalry boots to the soldiers, and what they would do is not make a left or right boot. They would just make boots. So the soldiers would find them so uncomfortable that they would wear them in the river to hope that they would break in a little bit more, but most of the times they would just end up falling apart anyways. So this is a myth perpetuated by history, and even in history, soaking boots never really worked anyways. Don't soak your boots. This is an enormous myth that needs to stop. Just wear your boots to break them in. And I'll do a video in the future about how to break in boots a little bit easier if you're interested. Those are 5 myths that I just debunked here in this video. What do you guys think? Let me know other myths that you found in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. And again, I want to remind you guys to hold boot companies to a higher standard. They're not making everybody's width size because you can fit into the size they make. But fit into the size they make is not the same as a proper fit. So get your feet measured and boot up with the proper size. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you around. Peace. Fitting into a pair of boots ain't the same as fitting right. So make sure the pair that you choose to wear don't fit too loose or tight. Thanks so much for watching today. Why don't you check out this other Myths Debunked Cowboy Boots video, or I got a music video down here I think you might enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace. Have a good one.